Howdy, everybody. My name is J.R. Sparrow. I'm the host of West Virginia Commonplace. And what's about to happen here? This is an episode that I will be a part of, but this is for family, friends, people that want to hear my sister's story. It's a very illustrious story that should be told by no one other than herself. So at the very beginning of this, I'm just going to narrate this real quick part right here. Part one of this thing, so that this story can go to a full circle, is she's going to give you the introduction to who she is. And normally you would get more questions from me, you would get a lot more out of me in that essence. But let's get the origin story, because it's best that it's told by you. And I'm just going to sit back. And after you tell the origin story, we'll go into the second, third, and fourth part, because this is a very intricate story, and there's some life lessons, and there's some things that deal with mental health, that deal with empowerment, that deal with some harsh topics, and some things that if you didn't know the person, or you didn't hear the person's story, you would never understand why choices, decisions, and things are made. So I would like the audience to hold your applause, hold anything that you want to do thus far. I'm going to pass this along to my sister, Vallon Sparrow. Please take the floor and tell us your origin story.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is my origin story. My name is Vallon Sparrow. I was born October 4th, 1983. My mother was Rosalind and my father was Wilbert, and I eventually had a younger brother named JR. In school, I was a very shy and quiet young lady. I didn't really like to be around a lot of people, but I was always interested in learning. As a young child, I had a great interest, believe it or not, in marine biology. I loved animals and I loved the sea. As I grew up, though, that interest kind of died, and I got into music and foreign languages, and have a genuine love for music. I play a couple of musical instruments and spent many hours in my youth studying. But what ended up happening as a result of me becoming very scholastic and scholarly, um, I felt like there was a bar set up above me that I always had to reach, but I couldn't reach it. I had to study more, I had to do more, but it always seemed like it was never enough. As a result of being excessively into school and my extracurricular activities, I missed out on developing friendships. I alienated myself from many family members because I would always want to stay home and study or practice my musical instruments or work at my sports that I was doing at the time instead of going to like family outings, family reunions. I When we fast forward a little bit to middle school and high school, I was always nervous and shy around large groups of people. So I had self isolated in mainly studying and having those extracurricular activities defined who I was. To myself, my self image was very warped. Um, and all I could do to keep myself afloat was ride off of my accolades, ride off of the praise that my family gave me, because the identity that I had was my intelligence. If I did not have my intelligence, I was no one. My creativity and my soulfulness and my gift of encouragement did not come out until later years. I did not discover that I even had those gifts to offer to people. And I became very arrogant. I became one of these type of young people that I didn't think that I was invincible, but I thought that I was better than. And that led to even more alienation from peers and friends and family. I felt that I had, in order to be the best at what I was, I had to keep going with the hours of study, with the hours of practicing instruments or fine tuning techniques for the different sports that I played. And I stopped to care less and less about people. As I got into high school and was on the verge of graduating that summer, I met a man, and I had never dated or anything like that beforehand. What happened with that was I had a summer where I just kind of we went out and stuff. And at first, that relationship was actually a very nice, healthy one. We did have a barrier, but it was broken because I knew Spanish.
Okay.
And from that point on, as I get into my young adult life, I was maybe about 18 when I found out I was pregnant. That was a big blow to me because you always hear about women having children out of wedlock, not being married, the baby's mama, all of that. And what compounded it was the fact that I felt even more isolated and I couldn't go to anyone to even let them know that I was pregnant at the time, was the fact that the relationship I was in became verbally, emotionally, and even physically abusive.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. Now, getting that far into the story, that's fine, but I want to go back to the earlier dynamic real quick because I am a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Your family structure, because people have my side of how our family grew up, but in our family, there was two sides to it, and I always do this with everyone. I will always proclaim and say that I came from a home of love. I don't know if you came from a house of love or if you just basically, I don't know if you came from a home or house. Which one did you come from, a home or a house?
Um, and after my father's death, I was 8 years old, around 8 years old when he passed. After my father's death, the home that I lived in became a house to me. I was just an entity that came in and out, did what I did, and everybody else's course of life kind of circled around the outside of mine. There were points where when I got into high school and really into middle school, the relationship that I had with my younger sibling, it kind of grew apart because he was in his own world and had his own group of friends and his own society, if you want to say that. And I kind of withdrew into my own quiet corner. Um, as for my mother, she was there as best as she could be, but she was chasing her own pursuits. And often what ended up happening was is she was very absentee. So I do and am grateful for the women that stepped up, like aunties and friends of mothers, to encourage me and to still help. But they were so distant because they had their own lives working and just different distractions. So, mainly from the point after my father's death, more so in middle school forward, I felt detached, and home life was living in a house, not really a home for me.
All right, so something we can address here, and me and you both, brother and sister, we can say this wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Rosalind. Um, Great
Yeah.
things on her as a person, but here, let's just get this out the way. And I hate to do this. Our mother, when our father passed away, she got exposed for her mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
that probably should have, in no pun intended, and no like jab at anybody. Our mom was a walking schizophrenic manic depressant,
Yeah.
and there's probably other things that went on. And at that time, no matter where she was, because she was from Ohio to Virginia in schooling and different things, she slipped under the radar. She's one person that I will say that that's probably why I do this show as much as I do, and I do so
Mm-hmm.
much with mental health. She slipped under the radar, and her infractions in mental health could no longer be hidden, or people didn't sugarcoat it. Oh, we'll just say Rosalind's slow or something extra, some extra bullshit like that. I'm sorry I'm doing that on your episode, but I want to get this out there. So to me personally, and then I want your take on this. When she got exposed, and these are the examples, audience and family members, anybody that's listening, our mom, after our father passed away, had tons of money, tons of money. I'm talking about as a kid. I'm talking about a 9 or 10 year old kid. My mother handed me $1,000. I don't know your take on things. I had the latest video game systems. Those game systems were $5.99 back then. So you put it to this date, it probably would be $1,000. So I was taken care of on the end of money. I was taken care of on the end of therapy because they sent us both to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know exactly what happened to you at those points. But I know that when it went off into individual sessions, for me personally, they made sure that I was structurally sound here. They made sure I was halfway structurally sound academically and in social things. So for the part of my mom, I don't hold a disregard for her, but my issue and will always stand, and it's something that I've had to go through with counseling and whatever other interests I've had. I had to learn to forgive her for the two things that she did to me. As you were excelling at academics, and I was doing athletics, which academics for me or whatever, because I'm I'm the medium type person. I'm equal in both. Your academics, your marching band, she made sure that she was at your stuff. I lost her in that mix because I will honestly say the only thing that she ever came to athletic for me was when I refereed soccer. She never, we're not going tit for tat for that right now because this is
Mm-hmm.
about you. But the thing is about her mental health. Once we found out what she had, she went and they did shock therapy on her in Petersburg, correct?
Uh-huh.
It was so many different things that happened as kids. I always felt bad for you because even though we had the family, I'm the younger one, so they're still treating me as a kid. And everyone that's involved, with the exception of a few, I always felt, and this is me personally talking to you right now about this. This is not something that's rehearsed, everybody. I felt like they made you an adult by the age of 10 or 11. But getting back to what I wanted to ask you with all that little rant I went on was this real simple thing. How did her mental health issues, because you were far more advanced thinking than me, like you had to learn this stuff. Our mother took what, $10,000 and tried to get on a plane in Lynchburg to go to Washington D.C. to chase a man.
Yeah.
I think the underrooting issue is that once we started getting right there at, I was probably in fifth grade, you were probably in seventh or eighth. No, you're a few grades ahead of me. You're like 4 grades ahead of me, three. By the time you were almost in high school, you were already set up for failure by her actions, because she showed you that I'm going to chase a man. And this is no disrespect to my mother, but this is so people can have an understanding of who we really are.
Right.
I'm going to chase a man. I want a man. A man has to pleasure me. A man has to, and when I say pleasure, we're not talking sexual. I'm talking about mental, not financially, but just whatever social aspects that you need from a partner. Our mom was more stuck on a partner, and if it wasn't for the grace of the ladies that were involved with us, shout out to the guys in our family, but it was the ladies that raised us.
That's it.
Like I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna slight anybody, but the women in our lives, and I will shout them out from the B's to the Judy's to the Rubies to the Marians to the Agathas to all these people.
Yes.
We were raised by a group of women. But let me go before I get too deep, and I'm sorry that I've
No, you're
side
fine.
because I want to get the actual aspect of your thought.
Right.
What impact did Rosalind's mental health have on you from basically, because basically everything hit you in middle school, for your middle school years until you hit your freshman year?
Initially, I was very embarrassed because, mental health back then was something taboo. It wasn't understood, it wasn't accepted if that was somebody's plight in life as it is now in this society. So I never had friends over. I purposely would ask my mother to, if she wanted to come to a friend's house or whatever, not come because I was just embarrassed by her mannerisms and how she acted. And that made me shut down with her because I knew that one day there might be mom, the next day it might be a drug induced reality. Prozac, right, or Haldol or lithium. And don't get me wrong, those medications, when they are administered right, do good. But our mom lived pretty much like a zombie. She would take her medicine, sleep for hours on end, and then basically wake up. And by then, the day is over with, and we're on to get ready to go to bed or whatever we had for that evening. But the mental health with her also affected me where it made me determined not to be the same person that she was, neglecting her children in the aspect of not being there. Or when she was coherent, it was always a quick, hey, I'm gone. And she was off to go with another man or, on a vacation or out. She never stayed home. And like I said, because of the medicine and just her disposition, if she was home, she was always asleep. Um, I had a lot of my friends' moms that would sometimes pick me up from these practices because my mom would be late. She would oversleep, especially for the band practices. I stayed with a few friends that I had made in band and some family members. I stayed as I got older, I stayed with them more than I did at home. That's why I say from middle school up, home became a house to me. I would come home long enough maybe to touch in with my brother if he was even there, get some clothes, and go right back out with my friends and pretty much live between them. Um, there were good points with my mom. It wasn't all bad, but it the bad outweighed a lot of the good. The impact that it had on me relationally as I got older and started developing my own personal relationships was this. I didn't feel like I needed a man, but I felt like I had to do things for them because I see my mother always buying her boyfriends things or always making sure that she paid for everything. So it was reversed.
Let's keep it real for people. There was a man on Wright Shop Road in Madison Heights. She paid for his Jaguar, paid for his fucking Jaguar, and She took that man. They was going to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this about me, and I want to say that I was properly cared for in this manner.
Right.
Money was thrown at me. Money was always thrown at me. If I wanted to go do something, I had money. Hell, I pull up at the football game. I would pay for people to go in the football game.
Yeah.
I mean, I one football game I'll never forget it. We were playing Tunstall.
Yeah.
Of all things, and that's crazy. Like, she gave me $1,000. She said, "Spend all that money with your friends. Do what you want."
Right.
$1,000 at a fucking football game.
Yeah.
And I didn't see. My problem was that everybody knows I've always been materialistic. So none of that bothered me because I got showered with what I wanted. And like you said, I had the social aspect. Like, I'm the social butterfly. So me personally, I had people to run to. I had people like they talk about on your cell phone how you got apps on it. I had a person for everything. So I had an app for that or a person for this and that.
Right.
And even to this day, I still keep some of those things. So me developing, like you said, we were in two different worlds. So by the time I'm in 10th grade, we only went to school together my freshman year, 1 year. So every time I would catch you in school, except for middle school, because middle school, we had 5th to 8th grade. So you were in 9th grade by the time I was in middle school.
Right.
Or however it worked out. We always caught each other at the very ass end of you going to school or something like that, or your last year, wherever. So we didn't have like normal kids. Like, there was no true rivalry between us because you did totally different stuff. I tried to do the band, and we all know how that went. And my thing is, it's like,
and I did soccer, and we know how that
right,
went.
right. And shout out to everybody that played soccer.
Soccer, yeah.
Yeah, especially JV. But anyway, enough on that one. So the thing is that, like, as we got older, we separated from her. And in separation from her, everybody knows that I became this lover boy. So I had girlfriends. So by proxy, I was learning my love language and learning how to treat someone, not from my mother, but from the way that my mom, like, and this is one thing that I find very disrespectful. Instead of her taking you and trying to get you to engage with not men, but just healthy relationships with friends. Because when, basically, it was kind of like, I'm not saying you were a hobo or nothing, but once you hooked onto them friends, you had to go chill with them and stay with them because Rosalind wouldn't take you to do things. She would take me and my friends to Skateland. We had a red van and shit one time. And that's during the mid-90s. My friends knew if they came over to my house, we was wilding. Yeah. We had pizza rolls and stuff. So I had that different aspect. And then, when you were there, you were upstairs in that room.
Yeah.
You might open the vent and say some gangster shit to us, like shut that shit up, or no, we didn't even know shut that shit up then. It was like shut the fuck up or something. Stop making all that loud ass noise.
And then I shut the vent back and go back to studying.
Right. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, during the interaction and stuff, because we haven't even wrapped up around this, we had a father. We had a father for 8 years of my life, 9 years of yours, to a degree. And our father in that time, and this is just my take, and I really want your take on this because this is the aspect that gets people to understand the empathic nature, the charm, the wit, all of. And I hate to say this in such a rude way because I'm not disrespecting our mom and I'm not bashing her in this, but most of my characteristics come from my father, except for some of the mannerisms. And some people say that me and her have a lot of similarities, which I see some of them sometimes, little cunning things and stuff like that.
Right.
But our father, in 8 years, gave me more, and then I want your take on this, gave me more insight and more depth that I had to grow into and grow out of. And when I say grow out of, this is what happened to me. People gave you so many stories about your father. People told you the good, the bad, and I don't know if you heard the ugly because he has the same attitude I have, or I have the same attitude as him. I was taught that he was very lenient. He had patience as long as Texas. But when that broke, it wasn't he had a psychosis. It wasn't that he was mad, but he had a rage. You did not cross Wilbert Sparrow. And with me, that's the way that because one person in particular says that I have an attitude, they must spit in the air. So my thing is like, what was our dad's impact on you, and how did the formidable years with him, and then the unformidable years afterwards? Because I say this, inside grief, the 4 years after he died were the worst years of my life. And I don't know about you, but after the 4th year, I had to accept that he ain't coming back. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn. And that's what has molded my mind to this day, to the point where when someone cuts up, I give them 3 tries, and then their memories museum, and I'll keep the memories, but I'll let the entity go. Because the problem with me, and I'll tell you this, and this is really sad, you can probably doctor me on this later, is it's not that people are expendable, but at an older age, I got to have peace. And that's been my whole issue. If someone disrupts my peace, you can go. But anyway, back to Dad, because I didn't got too hyped.
Right. Well, with dad was always there. Our father worked two jobs. He worked one main job. He was a realtor. Our father was 10 times busier than our mother, but he was always there. The days that he was off, he would always take us, my brother and I, to racing or to see relatives or to go out. He's the one that instituted us getting our allowance. He took us to spend our allowance every week, whether it was originally $5 and it went up to $20. Our mom got mad and she was against us having an allowance, and I was made knowledgeable of that. She's like, the kids don't really do anything wrong. We actually did do things. We brought home good grades.
Folded laundry.
We folded laundry. I helped with dishes. Jared did different things. Our dad actually had us doing certain things. It might not have been heavy duty because we were a lot younger. I mean, you figure it's like 6, 7, 8-year-old children. But she got mad and he was like, well, you work your own job. You have your own money. I make sure these bills are paid. And so when I saw that, I was like, whoa, our father was for us. And it's not to bash on our mom because in her own way, she loved us. But she was always out with friends or out doing things, and she didn't always take us with her. Our father included us with his activities. On his free time, we were his free time. And his work ethic. The thing that impacted me the most and gave me the most peace about my father passing away at his funeral. The funeral was so packed that people had to stand outside of the church and out and around the church. They couldn't get in. That let me know that whatever walk of life my father had, I had to model that because he impacted so many people by just his mannerism. The man was smart. I credit my intelligence to my father. That's the gene pool thing that me and JR both got. We got our intellect from our father. My father's determination and his honesty and his work ethic, something that in later years I would develop and honor. Um, his dedication to family. My mother wasn't always the easiest person to live with, and my father had to take a step back, take deep breaths, and he loved her in spite of. I saw that. That's how I treat people. Some people are unbearable people. Don't even know why they're so mean. They're mean just because they can be. I don't know. I don't know the disposition. But my father gave me the example. Love them anyhow. Don't let them mistreat you, but you can still love them anyhow. The one thing that I can say that my father also gave to me was his determination. That man stayed determined. He didn't care. If he didn't get something right the first time, he stuck with it until he did. That never give up attitude, that perseverance is exactly what it is. And truthfully, too, Dad gave me this genuine love of just being yourself. My father was different. He was from the country, but he loved rock and roll. And guess what? I love rock and roll. I listen to rock and roll. And coming from the country and being African American, that was kind of looked upon as different and odd,
Alternative.
alternative, especially back in the time when he grew up, because rock music was considered to be white people music, and you just didn't do that kind of thing. And a shout out to the now deceased Tommy Tucker because him and my father, that's how they became friends, was their love of car and their love of rock music.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop this one here because this is where we did part one. This is 20 minutes.
Right.
We'll go into the second part, and I like how this flow is going. And you see why, like, even though you gave your full story real quick, certain aspects, I guess I do got to pull as a podcaster because when I'm pulling them, we're getting the answers from you. You know, because when you're telling a story, you tell it quick and concise because that's what we do. We're concise people. So, audience, please stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll get into it.